doesn't mean that there aren't systems set up to defeat you. But how can I stand in this black university that's given so much to us and say, well, I think a predominantly white institution is going to be better for my daughter who just went to Hampton? I have to believe in us, because at the end of the day, if we fail, I have to look at me and say, I'm the reason. And failure is ultimately just giving up. You should embrace not succeeding and failing, because you learn a lesson that's invaluable. My grandfather couldn't read the manual, so he had to learn how to fix a car by fixing the car. I would sit out there with him, boy, he knew I was lazy as the day is long. I say, Granddaddy, I'm not gonna change no brakes. I'm not gonna have to do that. I'm gonna be an MC. He said, well, fool, if you don't know what's going on, somebody will charge you and never change your brakes. So it's my job to make sure you know how to do even what you don't want to do. And I realized that that man had spent his life trying and failing and retrying until he succeeded. That man who had not had a father learned to be a good father by simply saying, I will do what my father failed to do. I will be in these children's life. I will sit this child in my lap and say, read to me, and I can't read a word on the page. My grandmother found out I had dyslexia. She laughed. She said, oh, it's too late now. You about to graduate. You know a D and a B. You know deer ain't bear. Damn. I didn't understand until I started seeking self-accountability, how important self-accountability was. I didn't understand until I wrote in that song, it was me. I'm the reason that I failed, that it's not my children's mother's fault. Because I chose to have children with this woman. So it's my job to create an atmosphere in which me and this woman both feel respected. So these children feel loved and respected and accepted. It's not anyone's fault but mine. That doesn't mean I don't have enemies and adversaries. It just means you won't get in my head enough to make me doubt myself. You can oppose all you want, but I'm still gonna win. They killed Christ, and 3 days later, he popped up and said, nope, I win. And in his win, it gave all of us redemption. I told somebody before, I don't know if Christ in the Bible was real, but I know it is one of the greatest stories of love and redemption I've ever read. So I choose to believe. I choose to believe because I want to be like that. I want my individual sacrifice to work for the better of humanity. Music showed me a blueprint for change. It weaved together for me art and culture, activism. Hip hop started as a community change agent. Poor children in the Bronx, South Bronx, which is where some of my family from Tuskegee moved to. A bunch of poor children at a time that Reagan was president or becoming president chose to take an art form and use as a way to organize. What did Malcolm say? You're not outnumbered, you're out organized. What did Stokely Carmichael say? We should be in a constant state of organizing. That's why I don't take my hands off young people. I don't care how ratchet your song is. You can organize getting 300 kids in a club in what was that old club in Montgomery? The Rose. If you can fill the Rose up, and the Rose is treacherous, baby. Know a lot of y'all was in there too. You ain't got to hide your face. I got the pictures. If you could organize them kids, you could organize something on campus that's going to be worthy. Because as they leaving, you get to give out flyers and say, well, I want to see you next Saturday before the show. I'm tired of us giving up before we even give an honest effort. I hear people say one of the most disrespectful things I could ever hear sometimes. I'm not my grandparents. We know you weak. You're a sucker. You're lame. You give up before they did. They picked cotton and organized. They saved themselves, bought their own land, did business with one another, created one of the greatest historical black colleges and universities ever, and you sit in it. And the air conditioning work, unlike a lot of black colleges and universities, real good too. So when people say that disrespectful, I say you absolutely not like your grandparents because they find a way. They found a way over and over and over and over again. As we step out of simply being artists, and this is a challenge to artists and entertainers, where do we step up to? How do we use our relationships that we're making and use the capital that we're getting to reinvest, to re-gentrify in our communities? I saw Mayor Bill Campbell invite Magic Johnson, now billionaire Magic Johnson, to Atlanta. And he said, well, black folks want to go to Starbucks. I want to make sure that Starbucks is black owned. So the Starbucks on Cascade is the one all the folks went to. I want to make sure if you go see a movie, it's black owned. So the black owned people, black owned AMC Theaters was the one we went to right at Greenbrier Mall. We can do this. Booker T. Washington understood this, that if we can build a college, somebody else is going to hire you to build a government building. Maynard Jackson understood this when he gave a contract to the Russell family. The Russell family turned out to be the richest black development family at one point in this nation. They were 3-4 streets behind me. Now, we grew up in a little bit of houses. But boy, to ride your bike by the Russell house and see a house with an indoor pool, a tennis court, a basketball court on it, sure let me know as early as 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, if somebody that looks like me can do it, then I can do it too. And then it became less of I can and the expectation of. I expect you to outdo me. To the young people in the room, I expect you to do better than me. Don't be like me, be better than me. Was a phrase I used to hear all the time and I didn't understand because the people who were saying it were such good people. It was the preacher, it was the teacher, it was the principals, it was your parents. Don't be like me. Like you good and decent. What you mean don't be like? Be better than me. We have to return to these simple things and philosophies that have grown us, that have put us here, that have put us above. Entrepreneurship is not just getting rich and putting on a shiny suit. It's not just getting rich and putting money at the screen. Entrepreneurship is a civic duty. It is a duty to your community that you are an owner. It is not good to constantly seek others for help. We don't need your welfare. We can fare well on our own if properly organized. Largest acceptor of government subsidies are white working class poor people and farmers, and they got the nerve to act like it's your fault. They just changed the name. It went from welfare to SNAP. Imagine if you took all your money out of their system and only dealt with yourself. You've done it before. You did it in Tuskegee. You did it in Tulsa. You do it in Atlanta. Where would Nike be without Michael Jordan? It'd be a cool shoe company that nobody would be willing to pay $250 for some shoes for. You saved Cadillac twice. Cadillac didn't used to sell to black folks. Black folks used to have to hire an agent to go buy the Cadillac for them. Cadillac brought over a Swiss engineer. He got over here, you know. He was like, why we ain't selling to these black folks? The company was going to fold. Lincoln and Chrysler was kicking their tail. Because he convinced General Motors to sell Cadillacs to black people, you saved their company. I would argue Cadillac was going to fold again in the late 90s. And then they came out with the Escalade, and all the rappers had to have one with spinning rims. Now you can buy a Cadillac with a Corvette motor in it. It's because you decided to do that. Whatever you put your mind to is unbeatable. Atlanta is only Atlanta because black people have believed that I can there. So when I brag about Atlanta, I'm truly not bragging about a city as much as I'm bragging about a community, a concentrated community of strong-willed people determined to have better. And that does not happen with just Atlanta natives. We need people incoming that look like us to keep what we got going. If we don't have Selma, Alabama, we never get Reverend James Orange, who's played by Omar Dorsey in the movie Selma. You don't get James Orange. You don't get the person that taught me to organize. I don't get up here and be more than just a singing and dancing Negro. I opened the swag shop barbershops with my wife, Shay, because I understood that Black people have monopolized, in terms of hair, our own services, shave, wash, and groom. I didn't want you to just come get a haircut. I want you to come somewhere, you get a shave, you get a wash, you get a groom. So I know a lot of brothers weren't going to therapy at the time. Now we got brothers going to therapy. But sometimes, man, that 30 minutes was all you had. Man, my old lady tripping. Man, my old lady tripping too. That's all you had sometimes. And that talk set you out, say, hey, man, but you still got to do the right thing. You got to go home and take care of your old lady because she take care of you. She took care of you when you was sick. She fed you when you was hungry, and she take care of the little nappy head kids. I opened this business because of Bell & Wilder, and 11 years from opening the business, that's just a service-based business. Just Black men don't really trust nobody else to cut our hair, and I'm glad of that. But then I said, man, I don't like going in the beauty shop with my wife. She could shop 3 hours into everything the same store. I mean, everything's the same. We've been here 2 hours, Shay. Hold on. It's a little different. So I came up with the idea that we should develop goods and services that for our hair, our skin. And as a man, I wanted to buy it right at point of service. So if you come to the swag shop now, you can not only get your hair cut, you can get some good advice from one of our barbers, one of the brothers there, because we work with organizations like Silence the Shame that work to make sure that we are preventative in terms of healthcare stuff, in terms of looking at brothers with their mental health care. But you can buy your products right there. You can buy the brush right there. You can buy the grease, your beard oil right there. And that helped me understand, hey, man, you got a great idea here. And you look at what we're growing into, the next thing you know, a company like Square comes along and say, we want you to use our product in your barbershop. The next thing you know, Michael, we want to use you in the Square campaign. This is how much we're willing to pay you, and we're going to pay your barbershops. Because I cast down my bucket right where I was at. I realized that as good as singing and dancing were, the part I wear in my hair is based on what I saw Raekwon do and Nas do. And you can come get your part, but man, you can come get the brush it, get the grease to grease it, and the beard oil. I figured out my niche, my wife and I, and now we're rolling out product. Now we're partnering with companies like Square, simply from the concept of Bell & Wilder's Barbershop being a place for the entire community. So if I didn't have Mr. Bell & Wilder, where would I be? If I didn't have some men who were deacons and already had good jobs, who decided this barbershop needs to be here for the community of Dixie Hills, where would I be? I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't live in an all-Black community. I wouldn't take pride in servicing people, and we serve anybody. We cut white hair, Black hair, Asian hair, Persian hair, Nordic hair. We cut Aboriginal hair, indigenous hair. Because I understood more people than us need a haircut. We just go every week. So y'all my favorite customers. When you create a business, even a small business, you create opportunity for people to have dignity and pride. Barbering, when I first bought my first barbershop, was looked at something low class. It was looked at something that was almost, every barber I met was on his way somewhere else. Well, you know, I'm a barber, but I do this other thing. I said, yeah, we're not gonna hire you. Why? Because you got another thing to do. I need barbers. Barbering was once looked at almost like medicine or dentistry. It was looked at as something that was noble, that was regal. Our barbershops look like London-style barbershops. They have a red face and they have a red barber's pole because I understood the importance. We need to look grand and elegant. I opened a barbershop because I read about Alonzo Herndon, one of Atlanta's first Black millionaires. He had opened barbershops. He had held these 3 barbershops where all the barbers were Black and all the customers were white. So he had these Black men servicing these white men, and Lord knows white folks pay a lot to get their hair cut, trust me. That's $60 they don't need to be complaining about. But he started hearing the conversations of these men about life insurance. And he recognized how many Black people didn't have life insurance. So he went to them and said, hey, allow me to buy these insurance policies from you, allow me to sell them in my community. And out of that barbershop experience, he created the Atlanta Life Insurance Company. The Atlanta Life Insurance Company was responsible for the Black community, not only having the ability to have life insurance, but you could borrow against, open your first business. or just do something as simply as help a poor person be buried. If he had not had the wherewithal and the foresight to understand that giving people a service helps me and my community. Those in his barbershops are big, 20, 30, 40 barbers. If he did not have the wherewithal to understand that simply cutting hair gives these men dignity, instills integrity, keeps them prideful. Those men go on to open their own shops. Those men go on to be the leaders of families. Those men go on to run for office. Those men go on to run the West Side in terms of where he is in the West End and further, and the Edgewood and Auburn Avenue community. Do you even get a Dr. King? Do you even get a Herndon House where they take kids to get inspired? Do you get Magic Johnson 100 years later buying the Atlanta Life Insurance Company? If you don't get that man who simply saw providing a service, and when they asked Magic Johnson, my buddy sent me, he said, "You got to see this." I said, what are you sending me? He said, Magic Johnson bought the Atlanta Life Insurance Company. I said, it's good. He's a billionaire. That's what he's supposed to do. They said, no, you got to see the interview. And I look at the interview, and they asked Magic Johnson, they said, why did you buy the Atlanta Life Insurance Company? He said, I was watching an interview by Killer Mike. If this child, whose family is a product of Tuskegee, Alabama, whose family benefited from seeing George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington having built what they built, if this child had not grown up in a strong household that expected excellence, if a child had not grown up in a community called the Collier Heights that was purposely black, they told white folks, we don't really care to come to your clubs. We'll just build a club in the basement ourselves. If that hadn't had the Herndon House, not the Herndon House, it had not had the Russell House where civil rights leaders was able to meet Dr. King, Ralph David Abernathy, Hosea Williams, could we have not planned out what Atlanta became? If that child wasn't poured into, Magic Johnson never would have bought it because he never would have heard of it. Because he never would have been able to hear someone brag on the excellence that black people had catapulted themselves in by simply saying my work ethic will determine my work and working toward it. So when I opened a barbershop, I bought it. I didn't tell my wife. I just bought it. And then I came to, I said, I just bought a barbershop. I spent our last $6,000 buying a barbershop. And she said, you so dumb. I said, what you talking about? She said, you could have just let that lease file and we could have gone there and just negotiated the lease and saved $5,000. And then she didn't talk to me for about 2 weeks. But my wife is from the projects. Her family's Hilton Head out South Carolina, and her mom grew her up in part in Savannah, Georgia, and they stayed in Yamacraw Village housing projects, and she got to see her grandmother, who was a janitor. She got to see her grandmother run a shot house. And I don't know if y'all know what a shot house is. That's where people go, they get their liquor on Sundays when you couldn't buy liquor on Sundays. But man, you'll learn something servicing people selling plates and selling liquor. You'll learn fair value. You'll learn how to negotiate. As I sit here right now, my wife is negotiating with the city of Atlanta to build an apartment complex in a building that I bought about 5 years ago. And I tell this story, I wanted to buy a Dodge Demon. I had my little $150,000 in the shoebox ready. And she said, nah, we ain't gonna do that. I said, what you mean we gonna do that? I saved my money. I gave you your money, what you talking about? She said, no, this man wants to sell his apartment complex for $250,000. We're going to buy it cash. He's going to take cash. I said, but I don't remember. She said, you said it. And now she's negotiating a deal which will allow affordable housing on the West Side so that black people ain't got to leave and be disparaged there.